If it does come, we'll go back to that on the agenda. So it is 9:05. Motion to open the meeting. We're gonna have Janine, if Janine is planning on coming, but if she can't make it, we'll reschedule it, but if not, we'll move her down. Janine McDonald is the Human Resources Manager for Saddleback. And she's gonna talk to us about housing and employment concierge services that they're working on. Conflict of interest disclosure, none for this meeting. I don't believe we have any meeting minutes for August 9th. I don't think you
I
were
wasn't
here,
there, unfortunately, I had to
and I don't think
watch some of
we
the
did
fireworks.
keep.
No, well, I left early.
It was you and me
I
and
left,
Laura.
and then Laura came in as I was leaving.
Okay, so it is recorded though, so does that cover?
What's that?
I said the meetings are recorded.
Oh, I think we still have that minutes, don't we, Joe?
I'll check my notes.
Okay.
If I have notes, I'll formalize it and bring it back to you. At least I get notes in writing.
Daryl is not on with us yet. Jeff Preble is here and he's from Wright and Pierce. And we've been doing some conversations about the downtown plan, so that's why he's here. He's listening in today and we have a lot to go over, so we'll keep going. Correspondence, any correspondence?
I have none.
Attainable housing, the update would be coming from Daryl, correct?
Yes, I don't know your thoughts, Kate, about maybe jumping ahead to Jeff, since he's with us, maybe we can talk.
That sounds fine to me, yeah.
Move to number 8 if you're okay with it.
Yeah, so Joe's been going through the downtown plan. That's what we were working on too as a committee. We've been trying to go through and get the low hanging fruit and some of the higher hanging fruit. And it was time to kind of look back and see where we're at, what we've accomplished, what we still need to do, how we're doing, all that good stuff. We actually had a meeting on, Joe put together on Friday with DOT, and Jeff joined us, Daryl joined us to go through a lot of the downtown roadway situation. So the sidewalks, telephone poles, the crosswalks, and Depot Street parking area and some of the other parking areas. We also went down to Aquasic and looked at the roads there and the challenges and where we needed to look at that. I'm gonna turn it over to you, Joe, on what you wanna go through.
All right, thank you, Kate.
Yeah.
So what I did when we put that meeting together, I was referring to the downtown revitalization plan, also the common plan, Range's comprehensive plan. And it did, the downtown plan does spell out the need for crosswalks, sidewalks, pedestrian facilities in both downtown Rangeley and in Aquasic. What I wanted to do was really kind of get that conversation going with the stakeholders. So Patrick Adams from DOT was here. He was instrumental in the overlook sidewalk, and that ended up being a 75-25 match. So that project is going to cost us down 25% of what it cost to construct once we're reimbursed. So Patrick was instrumental in that. He can be instrumental in some of these other projects as we move forward. And this was a very introductory meeting, really, to kind of scope what's important, what do we prioritize first, kind of on the ground. And we did have the good fortune to meet with Laura at her parking lot, kind of talked about what her concerns might be as a business owner there. So it was really intended to gather intelligence. We looked at Lake Street, and we looked at the power lines up above. That's not really Patrick Adams' thing in terms of grants. However, if we're going to do substantial improvements to the sidewalks, or if the DOT is going to do any significant maintenance work, it would be nice to program, if we can, the overhead power lines that go underground before that happens. So we're only doing it once. And that item is listed in the downtown plan, the power line item. And then we looked at Manor Road. There's an item, I believe, in the comp plan that spells out the long-term goal of putting a sidewalk from basically around Moon Lake Road towards the Manor Road and connect the Heritage Trust trails. Good morning.
I'm
sorry.
That's okay, Janine McDonald. I have a feeling. Go ahead. So we're skipping ahead a little. We're talking about our downtown plan, revitalization plan right now.
Thanks.
So what I wanted to do was just kind of tie that conversation into this conversation, which is the downtown plan. I know it's hard to read, but that's as big as I can get it on the screen. What our downtown revitalization plan spells out is immediate action, which is year one, which I believe this was formalized in 2019, but with COVID, just subtract a year out of it. We're not really far off track if you subtract out that year with COVID. So we have this calls for appointing a downtown committee. I think you folks are kind of serving in that capacity unofficially. Staff leadership, so we have Daryl, who's our economic development, community development person. He's a leadership position. Jeff Preble as our engineer is also involved. And of course, myself and Rebecca and Keith are involved in this. The month, I won't go through the whole thing, but in month 1 through 12, the second item is establish a downtown tax increment financing program. So we're very close on that. We don't have the letter back from the commissioner at DCD, although we do have a draft of it, and we have an understanding that they're going to sign it. They're just waiting to hear from us what date they think we should put at the top of it. So we're very close to having that program formalized. And then the next step is the select board will get a policy and talk about TIF policy. We actually had a meeting last week with Rebecca and I and our TIF attorney, and Daryl was there to talk about what are the next steps in terms of building policy, when are we going to begin capturing and all that stuff. So that is happening, just so you folks know. And the short answer to that question is sometime around April 1 next year. And there'll be more details, once the board gets briefed on it, there'll be more details as well. So we have succeeded for the most part with the tax income financing program. The next item, initiate village wayfinding signage. So we've talked a lot about this, and the rubber's actually hitting the road. We've got, I think, 7 signs up so far. Is there any feedback on those that you folks have? Have you seen them? Do you like them? You heard
They
anything?
look very nice.
Yeah, good.
You can read them when you go by.
Yeah. Just a little sidebar. There are 2 in Sandy River that originally had said town of Rangeley. They're now going to say Sandy River as soon as the sign is, the new signs are made up. Keith will have those put on top.
Yeah. Well, laid plans,
Yeah, so those are some of the things that we've done so far. I mean, we've been very successful with the immediate or the year 1 items on the first page. So the next page says partner with Chamber of Commerce to establish regular business visitation. To be honest, I don't know if that's been happening. Do you folks have any input on that?
On the Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah.
No, I have no
Okay.
input.
So let me make a note of that. Next item is identify community assets. That one, Jeff Preble, do you have any input on that one? Community assets? Do you remember what or Daryl, what the original intent of that was in the months 3 to 9?
That's a good question. Good morning, everybody. I put that up on my screen here too.
I think a lot of that is the assets that are in place, like the community infrastructure, even though some things need to be upgraded. And our resource economy with the waterfronts and the new docks and boat ramp and improved parking. I think it's doing an inventory of those kinds of assets, and also our business mix, what's out there for current businesses, and then just building on that. That's how I take it when you look at something positively. Here are our community assets.
Okay.
I think so
That's
too. I
good.
think it's things like, just making sure we have a list of things like the airport and the parking areas and the job mix and like things like pharmacy that obviously we don't have, and you know, writing all those types of
Saddleback.
things. Saddleback,
Community assets.
you know.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, health center, we have a rehab facility, I mean, all those types of things that are a mix that make it a good, you know, our community thrives. A grocery store, yeah.
all right. So we'll follow up on that, Daryl, between now and the next meeting, just to maybe provide a list of those, that's an addendum to this. Identify initial infrastructure action items. So this is something that Rebecca, Keith and I are working on through our CIP process. And of course, Daryl and Jeff are involved in that also. So I think we're doing pretty good with that. We've actually begun that process ahead of budgeting. That's Rebecca's suggestion, is a very good one, is to work on CIP first. Then it's easy to explain to the policy folks kind of where we're at as we pull the budget.
Things like parking lots.
Parking lots.
Depot Street,
project, yeah.
all the
those
ones that
things,
we've been
yeah.
talking about, okay.
So the last one on this page is work with realtors to improve advertisement of properties.
That was changed, we don't need to do that, I don't think anymore.
My honest feeling on this is the market's taking care of that.
Yeah.
for us. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on this item.
No, and done.
So that's a good thing. Let's go to the next page. Develop available commercial retail space database. I don't know if we've made any progress on that, and I don't know if this falls into the last category where the market's kind of taking care of it. Or do we want to work on this at a lower priority for when the market kind of slows down?
I actually think it's a good idea to do it, I don't think it will take any amount of time. I think it's just going through what's in the commercial district and saying what's available, what land's available. I mean, we know we can easily go through the properties themselves, but you know, is there even a spot where somebody could put in a new whatever they want to put in? I mean, we have commercial going up Cemetery Hill, correct? It's still zoned commercial. And then, so there's spots there, also going up onto the airport road. So there's different pockets that still have available lots. We should identify them. I don't think we have any obligation to do anything with them, but just to know that they're available if we're trying to entice somebody to come in for a pharmacy, let's say. What's available? We have this building who's for sale, and we have these lots that are empty.
Well said, and especially the Rangeley Crossing property, my understanding is they actually want to tear that down and put up a new structure. So in a way, build to suit, maybe that could be a good location for a pharmacy, let's say.
So we have the GIS system that we're working on, and it's all the infrastructure that's in town, and I wonder if we could separate out
Yeah.
what's in commercial zone, what's in that system itself, so it's just an easy, oh, okay, this is what's good.
Yeah, good idea.
That'd be a
There's a
great
good
idea.
idea. Okay, and the last one on this page, informally, we talked about this on Friday last week. It says initiate a parking study. Now, I understand that a few years ago, the town did swap from diagonal parking to parallel parking on Main Street. And it was successful. It's a good effort to do, and that was probably the first part of this parking study. I think the parking study is going to be kind of a living, breathing thing. One of the things that I wanted to point out last week when we went to Aquastic was if you pull into the 4 and 16 parking lot, it's if you don't know it's a parking lot, you're driving, you don't know, or you can't see it from the road. It's gravel. Not that gravel's a bad thing, but I think based on what I'm hearing from folks, it's something we should invest in is probably paving that marking the spots so that there's not mayhem with the parking and you can capitalize on the number of spaces that we have. So there's that lot, there's the Depot Street lot. And then parking in Aquastic in general is just really
Yeah, we
a challenge.
I've also talked to Keith, and we talked about this last meeting as well. Because of the snowmobile parking, trailers and ATV trailers have become less available, not more available with some of the purchases of properties and building different things. So we talked about cross utilization of Chick Hill and allowing some parking up there for, permitted parking. So they're gonna get some permitted parking. Also, we talked about the utilization of Route 16 Pleasant Street's parking area. We have the ability to park at the end of this road as well, and maybe do some permanent parking. And actually work with some of our rental agencies like Morton and Furbish, and have them buy maybe 5 or 6 tickets for their weekend renters and stuff like that. This would be a feed service though, this wouldn't be a freebie. So there would be income coming to the town for that parking. And that would alleviate some of the issues with, I mean, we're only really at Depot Street right now, that back part of Depot Street that's gonna be available, because noise, that lot was well utilized in the last few years, the one across from the IGA. And so that's missing. So we need to coordinate with the snowmobile club on that and make sure that we're working with their parking as well, which is, they provide for free. You know, they donate their spaces, but just to make sure we're coordinating where all those parking resources are and how we can utilize
Has
them.
anyone made any contact with?
I think Keith might have, but I'm not sure, so,
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can make a note.
Tony Wakefield's the new president.
oh, okay.
Well, there's a lot of great ideas shared there Friday on parking in different areas, particularly over in Aquasic, and having some on-street parking in some areas and just trying to better define things. Particularly over in the Aquasic Village area.
Yeah. Aquasic is very difficult. There's like really no even lot. And the one lot that was, what we wanted to do was by the Route 17 by the museum. Bill Pierce has been trying for a long time to get the DOT to allow us to park, and they haven't allowed that. However, I think with Patrick there, it sounded like there might be some more flexibility. And he talked about programs like the village, what was the?
Partnership
what was that
initiative,
called?
VPI, yep.
Village partnership initiative.
Yeah, so that has money associated with it where they can partner with us, but it also allows for some more flexibility of their regulations.
Yeah, that was another takeaway from the other day, was that the VPI, both for Aquasic and then also downtown Rangeley. The new commissioner of DOT is a fan of this program, and I think you'd be willing to kind of work with us, hopefully on a pilot basis or the first real program in the state. So we're going to try and work on that with him.
Is that like MPI?
It's very similar to MPI. It's a village geared towards villages. Okay, so I think we're good on the parking. Continue. So we're in the 1 to 3 year time frame now. Strategy is to continue to improve broadband and cell phone service. We all in this room, I think, know where we're at with broadband. Sidebar: there is a quarterly meeting of the elected folks in the 4 communities on the 27th at 6 in Dallas, and we will continue the discussion about broadband. Cell phone service, the selectmen have authorized me or directed me to send letters of support for the improvements to the Bald Mountain cell tower and also the new tower that's proposed on Dallas Hill. So I think that's a pretty good update on those couple of items. Update the comp plan, recognized two recognized downtown revitalization plans. So the select board has created a committee. It's called the Comprehensive Plan Review and Implementation Committee. So far, we have 1 person interested. I know I've talked with Kate about some folks in her neighborhood that may be interested. If anybody's interested in this, please let me know. And we'd like to get some folks on there. Again, the idea is to review the current plan, see what's been implemented, and then start talking about an update. When the update would recognize the plan that we're talking about today. Update. ordinance.
I have a question on the comp plan.
Yeah.
Daryl, is that, do you have to reissue a complete comp plan to
No,
the
you-
state or?
Yeah,
Go
if you want to get a comprehensive plan update, you can just do the update and the state can approve that.
And that would be approved for 10 years again, and that's another 10, that gives you another 10 years? Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I'll try to pick up the pace a little bit. Update ordinances, the select board will begin their review of chapter 38 next time they meet, which is a week or so.
What's chapter 38?
Zoning.
Okay.
And I know that the ordinance committee also has a few other items that they're gonna be looking at. The cemetery is one, I think flooring. There's another one. So those will be consistent with this plan. Year one and ongoing coordination, promotion of large public gatherings, that is obviously a challenge, or that was a challenge from COVID. I think we're hopefully starting to climb on it. We have held several this year that were successful. But we haven't, but folks have in town. Year 1 to 3, visual survey of and outreach to village properties that negatively impact the downtown image. One of the good things that's happening with the market right now is a lot of this is kind of taking care of itself. People are picking things up and either tearing them down or fixing them up. They're investing right now, so the market's helping us with this. From my point of view, I don't know if folks look at that differently, but that's the way I'm seeing it. Houses are not on the market very long, and they're picked up and either improved or demoed, and people starting again.
The one thing that did come up over the summer were some of the houses that were still dilapidated and dangerous. And why aren't they down yet? Or, with the, have they been identified? For example, the one with the tree on it in Aquasic, that's been like that for now 2, maybe 3 years. It's collapsed. I think if you were,
So there's a public hearing on the 20th. The select board will be reviewing whether or not they deem that a dangerous building. So there's a formal process for that, and we're definitely aware of it. And they will make that determination.
right.
Provided they have enough information to do so.
I guess my question isn't on that particular property, but in general, the
Is
policy. Yeah, I mean, is somebody kind of going through and saying, okay, these 2 or 3 properties have been sitting here looking like disaster for, and which ones can we do something about, and which ones we have no ability to do something about? I mean, the procedure.
So I know when the prior CEO was here, he was very gung ho on getting all this done. I think that for our current CEO and the way things are, the market is, and how property selling people are, the building permits that are going through her office is astronomical right now. So she does not have time. But I think her plan is come winter time, that will be the focus of that.
Because that process usually takes multiple years with the state too, right? I mean, you can't just go tell somebody to take down their property. You have to go through a process with their ability to fix it and.
It depends on the condition of the building. If it is a dangerous building, the elected folks can make that decision. There are options for that. The elected folks could determine if they wanted to use the court system, which I don't recommend. It is a fairly complex thing. It doesn't have to be a long process, but it sometimes is, really, because you want to make sure that the people that own this asset, their rights are protected because it is their property. The town just cannot come in and take it. They want to make sure.
And a lot of those things, Joe, were set up because the elimination of slum and blight is one of the big downtown centerpieces to apply for grants and other things. So we had toured the whole area of Rangeley, Aquasic, and we have documented several properties that are at various levels of blighted conditions. So we do have a list of those things. And how we deal with them, some of that will be through incentivized programs like facade updates or other things. And so I think you'll find that we start eliminating some of that. And even in the TIF application, we had to show that we had some blighted properties in the downtown target area.
Okay. Let's talk about continued identification of infrastructure action items. One of the good things about this is the TIF program that I mentioned earlier, that has a host of allowable items in it. So that will be discussed regularly with the board in the CIP process through Rebecca and I and Keith. We'll keep this rolling. Anything you want to add on that, Daryl and or Jeff Preble?
I'll defer to Jeff, but we have quite a list of improvements that we're looking at over the next couple of years and getting those funded. So I think it's ongoing, as it says in the plan here.
Yeah, and I think the thing to keep an eye out for is a lot of funding programs and stuff are kind of trickling through with, through Congress and such to try to stimulate construction activity and such. So You know, we want to keep a close eye on those opportunities when they come in and try to align projects with them as they fit.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Let's go to 3 to 5 years, which is the midterm, focus on branding initiatives, promote the village as starting points. You know, that was something we talked about several times the other day, how important the villages are to the town and to the tourism and people who use the town. So we'll continue to work on branding. Rangeley does have a brand, which is spelled out in the comp plan. You know, it's our outdoor heritage. Continued idea of infrastructure. This is a resounding or recurring theme. Develop available housing units database. This is year 3 to 5. So I don't know if this is something we want to kind of put on our radar.
This is exactly what we've talked about it now for 2-3 months, that it has to go immediately to the top of the list. I think back 2 years ago, it wasn't as big of a deal as it is now. And especially since we have some projects that are already ongoing with what that is, we need to understand what the capacities are, what the need is, what the mix is, you know, and so forth and so on. And what
Yeah,
the
Kate,
concerns are, right?
Some of that will be revealed in the Camoin Associates housing market analysis that they're doing right now for attainable workforce housing, but some of that's going to spill over into some of the available housing pieces too. So they will share that report with us this fall, and that might be the first bite of the apple, and then we could build on that and, you know, find out all of the various housing components.
Especially if you're looking at zonings,
Yeah,
ordinances now, I mean, they should be tied together.
absolutely.
So you're thinking, you know, kind of make this
Yeah.
a sooner priority. I mean, I know we've been working
Well,
on
we're probably year 3 right now.
I know, but I mean, by the time,
Yes.
it. Okay,
I mean, to have something happen and it will be by year 5, but we gotta start.
all right, we're getting there, folks. We're into the long term now, which is years 5 to 10. Year 10 and ongoing, assess the effectiveness of the organization or staff leadership position responsible for downtown. You know, Daryl and I have had this conversation. You know, I envision when he does more as community planning at this point. I think the economy, again, the market has helped us with economic development. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. I'm all ears if there's a different opinion on that, but I lean on him as a community development person.
Can you, just because I'm new to the area, can you elaborate on what that position is and who that is?
Yes, absolutely. So our economic development consultant is Daryl Sterling. And I actually think in the last version of this, correct me if I'm wrong, Daryl, you and I put language in your agreement that touches on community development. So initially it was really more geared towards economic development. How can we get businesses here and be business friendly? And now that that's happening naturally, it's more about how do we make sure that doesn't run us over as a community, make sure that we're planning for it, that we've got the infrastructure we need, the funding we need, and networking. A lot of what Daryl does is networking for us, helps us with grant opportunities. So let me see if I can get him.
Well, where was that in your plan, your year?
This
Did you
is
say 10?
years 5 to 10.
Okay.
Well, we already do
We
it.
already do it.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we've been doing it for 5 years already.
Yeah, well, what the line item is to assess the effectiveness. So
Okay,
what,
Yeah.
right, so
Yeah.
what I'm thinking now is we've segued more to community development. In 5 years or 8 years,
Yeah.
the economy may,
Yeah.
and we may have to kind of
Read.
adjust that. Another thing we may have to do, and I've talked about this, I say we have to. Another thing that we may want to do or choose to do is have this be a planner, or have this be an employment position in the town 8-10 years down the road. I'm not saying that that's the only way to go. I'm just saying that's another discussion that the elected folks may have down the road. So this line item, or this item in the chart, helps us keep that in our minds, that we should be thinking about that and adapting to what's going on, in as much as we're trying to lead or direct what's going on. So did I answer your question?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, good. Comprehensive plan, 10-year update. We've talked about this a little bit, and then downtown plan 5-year update. So we're not far off from a downtown plan update. Yeah. The good news is, we've, I mean, what I want to illustrate today is two things. Number one, we've accomplished a lot in the last couple of years. We're getting there. The other thing is, we've got some more work to do, so it's just kind of a progress check-in. Infrastructure, that's a recurring thing. We already talked about that. And then the last, I think this is the last item, is accrue capital investment to relocate utilities off Main Street. We can't wait until year 10 to start thinking about this. We are thinking about it already. And we talked about it quite a bit on Friday while we were in the whole picture. This is talking about getting the overhead utilities underground. I don't want to lie, that's at least a $5 million proposition, at least in Rangeley alone. But with TIF and with programming, all of the other items that we've talked about together, it's possible that we could do it.
So when we were talking about this 3 years ago and we were looking at TIF and Daryl, you were looking at programs, and one of the downtown programs that we were looking was there was a money that we could potentially get like $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 worth of money from.
Yes.
But it had to show that downtown had percentages of blighted properties that were a majority, some sort of percentage that met the criteria. And with all of the development that's been going on in the last 24, 48 months, or whatever, I just said 24 months, that seems to be, that number's dropping, right? So that percentage, are we still available? Can we still?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep,
Brain this morning.
we still qualify.
All right, so that was a program that we were looking at for the bigger picture of putting this package together. And I know Keith was talking about some short-term things, like having to get rid of a couple of poles,
Yes.
right? Because of the way they are and how they maybe dangerous they are. And the potential of maybe burying those lines. I don't know if that's possible or not.
I think those lines the poles would be relocated back, and those, so the lines wouldn't be underground, the poles would be picked up.
Do they have to be?
They should be, and the reason for that would be to get the snow removal equipment through the sidewalk.
No, do they have to be moved or can they be buried? So for instance, if you have a start point here and a start point there, and you have 3 poles, let's say in the middle, could you bury those 3 while you're doing that, instead of the whole thing?
I would defer to Jeff Preble on that.
So
See what his
staggering
thoughts
the
are.
process rather than
Yeah.
going for the 5 million.
Instead of-
would be a good idea.
Yeah,
What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I guess we'd have to look at the situation there and see if that's feasible or not. I think Keith mentioned one of them was like a guy pole, so it's supporting the pole across the street. So in that case, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, to try to bury that particular piece. But you don't want to invest money and stuff into putting something underground if it's not in line with the overall plan, and have to come back and do it afterwards. So I think it warrants some investigation to see make sure it all fits within the overall game plan.
You also don't want to invest
right.
in poles that may become underground in the future, right?
It's maybe a.
Right.
Yeah, we may be able to gently or kindly ask the utility to help us with that in the interest of public safety. Sometimes they will, sometimes they'll say it's just too monumental for us to take on. Jeff, can we sidebar a little bit and talk about, in terms of, very briefly, because I've talked a long time about this, but can you talk about what the planning process might be to move these lines underground, just say from Pleasant Street to Rangeley Inn? How would where do we begin with that? How do we get this ball rolling?
Yeah, I think probably one of the first things to do is to get lined up with the representatives from Consolidated and CMP and that sort of thing, and maybe have an on-site meeting with them to look over the whole situation and how we could provide service back into the buildings. look where the utility conflicts are for putting the underground structures and stuff in. You know, so probably, you know, that type of on-site meeting initially to get their thoughts and would probably be a good starting point.
Okay,
It just made me think that we should have that meeting sooner rather than later, because if we do win the grant and they're upgrading all of their services now,
Mhm.
starting in December or January, then it might incent them to do something.
Mhm.
Okay, just, or at least in a section, consolidated, CMP,
Yeah.
different story,
As
but
far as I'm concerned, we'll try to set this up in the next couple of weeks. I'll talk with Harold and Jeff and Keith on that. Let's see.
Yeah.
See how soon we
When
can-
when you're laying this out, there's some big structures that have to go on the ground to make the different connections and things. And areas where there's currently like pole mounted transformers and such, you know, to reduce voltage going into the buildings, they'll have to set up a pad mounted transformer in some area to redistribute some of the services and things. So, you know, that's probably the best bet is to get an on-site meeting with those folks and start looking at those different possibilities.
Final question, and it's for Daryl. Daryl, tell us how a project like this may benefit from our TIF program, or if it will benefit.
Well, a couple of things, infrastructure, community improvement, streetscapes, and public safety all come into mind. So we can use that for some incentivizing, also a little bit towards leverage in getting different grants to sort of piece this together from probably 2 or more sources. And we can do it in steps, i.e. if there are, say, 3 or 4 really unsafe pole locations, even though we want to do underground, we might do a modified utility relocation where we move those 3 or 4 problem poles. Another thing, if it looks like it'll take more than 2 or 3 years to do an underground utility project because of the cost, but the timing I think is good now to pursue this, then we could do in a couple of spots, do a backlot utility relocation where we take the unsightly wires off of Main Street and they feed the buildings from the rear. So these are some of the projects I've been involved with in other communities. And that, but I think, as Jeff pointed out, to set up a meeting, just like we had on Friday with the walk around with Patrick Adams at MDOT and other officials, is to get the utility companies all on board. And then we also have to look at anytime you're repositioning utilities underground, then you gotta be mindful of where's the sewer and water lines, and you know, are we gonna have other issues with that? So I think full speed ahead though, and start the process, and then we'll look at you know, maybe we can get some planning funds, maybe through DOT as well. He mentioned this PPI program and at least get this ball rolling, because it's going to take a little bit of planning, actually a lot of planning on this one.
Yes.
From where we are with raw estimates in the beginning, like, well, how do we show that this is a $5 million project, and what's the linear foot area that we're doing this? But I think we'll just keep focused to move forward on that. And my job is to try to find the funding that will make this happen, at least in 1, 2, 3 phases.
Very good, thank you, Daryl. And that's me walking us through that plan. Are you okay with the pace we're going at? Do you have any recommendations for us?
I just have a question. So when the underground happens, you're looking at digging up all of Main Street, right? New sidewalks, new road, so that's new septic lines, water lines, just like we've done in the past to give other people the opportunity too, to get those lines done. Right?
That's certainly a conversation we would want to have with those folks, the water district, the sewer department, because Keith will be involved in that conversation naturally, but yes, I would approach it that way, holistically. If there's anything that needs to be done under the hood, let's talk about it, let's plan on it. And let's not, the last thing I would ever steer the board towards would be to do this and then 2 years later have it ripped back up. That would not be good for any of us. So,
And we
It's
have
always
to
best to
also,
do kind of a comprehensive approach on that. And
Yeah.
if you're gonna be disturbing Main Street, then time is then to get in there and do any other utility upgrades.
and it's the same thing if you're gonna lay conduit and you wanna go to period style streetlights instead of the old wooden pole streetlights. You have to
Mhm.
look at that because you'll be burying conduit before you put in new sidewalks as well for the streetlights. So it's a matter of coordination for sure.
Because if you take the poles down, now there's no street lights.
right, it is, there's no question, this is a big project, with a lot of moving parts, but.
So the only thing I would recommend is your ultimate, you know, beauty goal is everything buried, everything out of its way, right? That's the Cadillac. And then you're gonna have the other version, which is maybe backlot poles, but still would have to redo. Sidewalks are gonna be on there no matter what, right? Because they're not safe.
Transformer, they're gonna look not that great with the generator, so.
No, right, so that's how I would have like options so people can pick and choose. So you got the Cadillac $10 million version, which is some sewer lines and water, you know, new whatever.
Right.
And then then you have just new sidewalks, but at the same time, you probably do your things, like you said, sewer and water.
Yeah,
So I think our next step, you know, from my side of things is to work with Jeff and Daryl and Keith and Rebecca and set up that scoping meeting with the utilities and just kind of talk about what would it take. There's no commitment at that point. It's just really kind of exploration, and then we'll bring that back to you folks. And I see, you know, us working together and then bringing it to the elected folks and keeping them up to speed, making sure that we're going in the direction they want to go in.
Does the state have like, lined up with like replacement of roads within certain timeframes, like?
They do have a work plan. It's an excellent question. We asked that in our meeting here the other day, and they're gonna get back to us on where that's at in the work plan. I don't believe it's in the immediate work plan. They publish a 2 or 3 year one, but of course, in the back of the house, they have 8 to 10 years that they're talking about like this. So they may be able to give us some idea.
And then I hope that we go after Poland Springs and ask for assistance, because they assisted that way.
There you
Throwing
go.
it out there.
So maybe that's-
We've asked Poland Springs for money before. They've given us very little, but they've given us some. Then during COVID, they revamped their whole like partnership thing. They were like, well, we're not giving any money to anybody, but I certainly think you could go back to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It helps me for,
Yeah,
They're going to Stratton.
well, they did Route
To
16.
make that road so you didn't have to post it.
So did I, Jeff or Daryl, did I miss anything? Did we cover everything we needed to cover on that?
I think so. And I can leave you with one quick caveat if we need to relocate a few poles. If we go back to our licensed program administrator with MDOT, I remember taking the quiz, who's responsible to remove those poles, and the utility companies are responsible, so to speak, to do it on their dime. So we can approach that.
Very good. Thank you for letting me
Yeah.
share that with you this morning. I know that took a little bit of time.
That's good.
Okay, thank you, Jeff, thank you, Daryl. Well, you're welcome to stay.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I got another meeting to jump off to, so I'll talk to you folks all later.
See you,
thanks,
Jeff.
Jeff. That's
All right,
great.
thanks. Have a good day.
I'm good till 10 before I have to jump off, guys, so I'll stay hanging out.
We're gonna move to Janine, because, so I've asked Janine McDonald from Saddleback to come join us today. In the last month or so, I've had a couple of conversations with Tom and Andy and Janine as to what their plans are and what they're doing, especially around housing, because we started having that conversation, Daryl, about the housing project that potentially could be happening here in town, but also really doing an assessment of what is available and what they're planning on doing up at Saddleback. And because that's probably our primary issue right now is a workforce and housing workforce, and how to get people here, have them have a place to stay, have it be an exciting place for somebody in their 20s and 30s to move to, instead of you know, how are they gonna live in a tent, you know? Those sorts of questions came up. And the other thing about Saddleback is because Saddleback has the potential of all this growth, we didn't want we want to make sure that they're not an island unto themselves and that we're coordinating the efforts of the town and what's going on in Saddleback, so we're not duplicating effort and we're working as a community to make sure we're all integrated. So Janine has been working on a lot of these things and has been kind of looking at a concierge type service, which kind of cracked me up because it reminded me of the downtown plan. I mean, the downtown community destination academy we went to, where they talked about packaging things for in this case, it would be the employee. And I'm gonna turn it over to Janine and she can talk
Yeah,
about.
and thank you. I was so happy to meet Kate. As you all know, she has great energy. And it's really nice to be invited to a meeting like this. And sometimes my, being lost helps out because I was happy to hear all of the things that are on your list as well, because it does all dovetail for sure. I'm working on a lot of the same thing and trying to find avenues or grants like what Daryl is working on. So I'm sure we're working on some of the same things. So first, let me tell you who I am. I'm Janine McDonald. And I live in Farmington, so I travel up every day. I actually live on the New Sharon line, so I travel a distance every day. I was working at UMF as the HR partner. When I took this role, I was kind of joking with Andy and I said, oh, I taught my kids to ski there. I'd love to go there, right? So now I'm there for about 7 months and we have a lot of items on our list that really is similar to your list, and it would make sense if we all stay connected and if I start joining some of the at least listening in on some of your conversations, because we do have some avenues of sometimes funding, sometimes just ideas, right? And talking about planning and the joint collaboration. And here's why. So it has been a bit of a hot mess for me for the past 7 months because I came into Saddleback in the heat of the season for the winter season last year. So I couldn't really get my feet under me and bring my experience in. I was just trying to staff appropriately and trying to get people in the right positions to help us move forward. One of the things that was very prevalent early on is that Saddleback being over on the mountain, we have had very little applicants, very few applicants from the Rangeley area. So, and I'm wondering why. So I'm thinking we have all these jobs and perhaps no people in this area to fill them because the employment rate here is fairly low. So people aren't looking from this area. So the folks who are looking for positions are in the seasonal mindset. They don't mind sharing jobs and working for multiple employers. Demographic, you would think, are all like 22 to 30-year-olds. However, we have a mix of retired folks who are going back to the Appalachian Trail to hike and to do different things in the area. And all of them have a skill set that you may not think of when you have a lift operator out there all covered, for the snow, that she graduated from, Clemson with HR directors, background. So we have lots of different people coming to the area, which you're all familiar with, and with different skill sets that we would like to have stay in the area, right? And buy these properties and put some money into them and, pay some taxes and come skiing at Saddleback. So it makes sense that we all kind of stay connected in that way. I was quickly early on with my time at Saddleback, put on a couple task force that were manned by people all over the state of Maine of like, how do we grow these communities in a way that's planning and efficient, like what you're talking to do with these utilities, right? Make a good plan so that it's sustainable for a long period of time. And we don't have to keep going through these things in ebbs and flows every 8 years when the housing market falls off, right? Or when a large business closes, that the town would sustain itself on its own. So this particular task force was, I was tasked with kind of bringing a concierge service to the area. And Daryl, it sounds like you do this a bit already in your job duties. But this one is a little bit different. So what we are looking for is to tailor with a 501c that's already established, for reporting purpose, so that we can move forward quickly with this, because we're in the fall and we're going to have a lot of need for a concierge service for seasonal employees coming to the area. And here's what we found from all of we did multiple surveys, talking to people in different areas for employment services, a different area for, medical needs, all different things that you could help staff with. So what we came up with a name for the organization is Greater Rangeley Region Seasonal Employee Service. So the service is for locating housing, seasonal employment opportunities, and maintaining a job board, which we may already have in Rangeley. I'm not sure, but I need to come down, figure out what do we have. Benefits, providing benefits. I have been a benefits administrator in a prior role. And so I understand how to put those benefit package together that can help a demographic without a lot of cost to it. So we're looking to offer a health insurance, dental, long-term disability, short-term disability, and EAP. I've been asked several times, I could have used it multiple times throughout the 7 months, an employee assistance program that helps employees with different things like moving to an area I'm familiar with. I want kiosks throughout the downtown area that is equipped with people being able to look up these services and being able to apply for jobs. So kiosks like an Apple iPad, it's connected. Like you said, I heard that there is some type of already database for resources. Yeah, so that would be something perhaps we could connect with through an IT service. Healthcare. So then you have benefits, but how does the benefits work with the local healthcare providers in the area without always having to drive down the S-curves to, Franklin Memorial or down somewhere else? I have a story about that at the end. So, pharmaceuticals, how do you get somebody to want to come here? So I'm pretty open when I meet people to tap into okay, so I've got, where can we go from here? Everybody's kind of familiar with that. I met a retired pharmacist that has an apprenticeship program, right? So I'm all about apprenticeship programs. Let's train them and teach them and they'll stay, right? Mm-hmm. And then their children will stay, right? And then their grandchildren will stay. So that's kind of my mindset. So pharmaceuticals, I think we could get there that way. Providing information about where your local food pantries are, where does that food come from, where are the closets that it comes from? So, food insecurities, right, come from it trickles down to the areas to get the food in the right places. So farmers markets, how do they tie into that? And how do we tell these new people to the area where these resources are? And then local events. So you talk about community planning and the local events downtown, that after COVID, there were lots of people interested in getting out. That's why the ski industry is, was great during COVID, because people wanted to be outside. So local events, we share that. So I'm picturing this as a role. We already have funding for the role. I think in the beginning, it would be a full-time role to partner probably with you, Daryl, and others in the community, right, of what's going on here, what can we provide for a service, and probably I will stay in tune with that, but I can't, do more than one job, so it wouldn't be me. So bringing brochures, we need a small space in the downtown district, I would hope. I don't think it would suffice to be on the ski mountain, because what we're really trying to do is provide a service that's more connected with all of you. And so we would need space. We need a 501c who's interested in this. Of course, right out of the gate, I thought the Chamber of Commerce would be that. I'm tied to the Maine State Chamber of Commerce and then the Franklin County. And I'm sure that Rangeley has, I don't know if any of you are on the chamber board, but then I thought, you know, I should come here. So when I look up 501Cs, Rangeley has more per demographic than any other area in Maine, in the state of Maine. So I'm thinking I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket and be solo in my thought process. I want to open it up to many people, and I'm looking for someone to kind of reach out to me, right, and say, I think this 501c would fit nicely with this, and let's pursue like where the space would be, you know, what would that look like for costs and fees. We need to set up an office, we need office supplies, we need all of that stuff to get this person, this concierge person, what they need for tools so that it would be, you know, successful. I see it as being successful. So the who would be somebody with, you know, HR generalist background, marketing background, administrative service, probably a notary. The notary wouldn't be a deal breaker because I'm a notary, you know, we have notaries all over so that we could do that, but it would be nice. And at least to have that within the first few months, if not in the gate. The duties would include developing, maintaining job boards, hosting community forums, sharing information, collaborating with entities with similar service, and helping to partner with HR development for services and support for seasonal employees, or seasonal employees who may become, you know, non-seasonal employees.
Yeah,
I'm
surprised they could focusing in on seasonal.
Yeah,
To me,
well,
that seems
let
the
me tell you why. So we have 40 full-time permanent positions right now for Saddleback. We want to grow to 265 this season. Most of those are seasonal employees. I have seasonal
But they're
employees.
seasonal for you, not for the greater Rangeley region.
Well, actually, I've had a lot of other employees reach out to me and say, so our seasonal employees used to be your seasonal employees. So when you're off season, the demographic, we're calling them seasonal. They're not going to be seasonal for Rangeley. They're seasonal for us. They're seasonal for, you know, Rangeley Building Supply needs seasonal employees. So we're sharing them, but it's seasonal because employment wise through the Department of Labor, they're seasonal. So seasonal, you have your 2 to 3 time periods that you're under that employee's or employer's EIN number. So as far as, you know, like workers' comp, all of your payroll insurances and whatnot, they're seasonal employees. So that's why we're calling it seasonal. Not that we want them here seasonally. We want them here full time. That's the idea. So the target group we're calling seasonal because they're the harder group to get benefits for. You know, it's easy to provide benefits to full-time employees. There's already all of this information out there. The only other entity that I could find that was providing seasonal employees, you can provide seasonal benefits easily, but whether they're viable benefits that's truly a benefit to the individual, not just for the organization or company to say, I provide seasonal benefits, right? So really valued benefits, very hard to get for that demographic because they're working for me for these 4 months and they're working for you for these 3 months and then they're working for you. So who's going to pay for those benefits, right? We typically that group is not a high paying group. Usually they're a little more than minimum wage to the $20 an hour bracket, right? So when I did any of my data, I used 15 as an average. So they can't afford to pay 100% of, you know, the benefits either. So employers have to partner to be able to provide benefits for them. And then are you getting enough value from this employee to provide benefits? So there's a lot of, it's kind of complex, right? It's a complex problem that I think we can solve, and a lot of it we could solve with partnering with groups of like-minded, you know, people and just figuring it out. So I think it starts with this 501c because that's an easy way, you know, to create this in a quick manner. If we have a lot of 501c already here and we could piggyback off that, that would be really helpful. And so this person I would envision being on or invited to some of your boards, and I'm hopeful that it's a Rangeley person, so they already may be on some of your boards and already know, you know, what's going on here and what needs to be done and how do we fit this in. And then the why for this was staffing remains one of the greatest challenges for sustaining growth. I found with all of the surveys that I've done since I've been here and the challenge right now of getting people to move here before our season starts. Again, back to that seasonal employee, the Department of Labor defines that as a start date of November 15th for the ski industry. We need people in October, right? So where are they going to sleep? We don't have the housing project up yet. We do have a housing project coming in our plans, but it, you know, like all of your projects, we're talking millions of dollars, like that. It's, you know, it's a big project. So we need housing, we need short-term housing. And then when they're working for you, it's easy to provide housing and do payroll deduction, make it affordable for them, right? What about when they go to work for someone else? So there's all these things that this concierge service could help with. And even if it's just a help in communicating, knowing the resource to, you know, tell this person to go here, have brochures ready for everyone. And so that's what I'm talking about today. I have a lot of projects on my list that are very similar to this. And would welcome, I have an open door, you know, all the time. I do get busy. And so it's best to run by a calendar, but I always welcome people and visitors to the mountain so that we can show everybody what we're doing up there. And like Kate said, I think we don't want to be on an island of our own up there. We need to be part of the Rangeley and the greater Rangeley region, right? So not just Rangeley, but like the Classic and the outlier areas. I think of housing in a triangle here to get people here. And so we are starting a shuttle service and we're looking at actually a fleet and it's not a well-developed plan yet, but it will be within 3 weeks of how we're going to use our shuttle buses. And so when I listen in about parking lots and, you know, the snowmobile is like having that concierge service for that group too. So this is just a beginning.
You're talking about shuttling from Farmington too, though, right?
So I talk about a triangle. We are talking about a full fleet of shuttle service. So there'd be one local.
Yeah.
There'd be one going down to the park and ride in Farmington. There's already one going to Phillips to pick up some of our employees because as you may have noticed, I didn't do a lot of advertising for employees in Rangeley because I think everyone in Rangeley is hurting for employees too. And it wouldn't be really kind to like take all the, you know, to say, yeah, come up here when they're already employed. So it's more we need more employees in this area. We need to get them here.
The reason why I asked that is
Yeah.
one of the things, if you have friends in the right places and you need a pharmacy pickup,
That's right.
that might be
That is exactly
something,
where
right?
we're going. That's exactly
Right.
where we're going. Not just there like Hannaford, right?
Yeah, you could swing by Hannaford, do a
Yeah.
drop off.
So I worked for a Franklin Savings Bank for 21 years. So I am local. So I did come to Rangeley a lot and was based in Farmington. And yeah, the workers up here at our branch, right, would say one of them would go to Rangeley once a week. It should have like a whole list. I'd hear every week of everyone else's stuff, you know, so teaming up. So definitely we need that. We also want to go over to the Eustis area, right? So we want to go down through that area. So right now we have 4 shuttles that we're not using, shuttle buses. We're using 2 of them for our outdoor programs, which is a little slow this year. We bought it for the future because we had, you know, the grant money to do that at the time. But we want to develop a real viable plan for shuttle service and for the area. Yeah, to share that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and to pick up skiers, of course. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, but will it be available for folks locally to bring them to the mountain or bring them to the restaurant or
Yeah.
the airport?
Yeah, so we have a challenge of parking. And we're not doing a lot with it this year. We also have a challenge of not enough office space, and one of the temporary office buildings will go in a parking lot. So we're like, how are the skiers even going to park sometimes on busy days right there all the way down the access road? So one of the ideas was to come down and talk about that. So what can we do? And it fits into a lot of the planning you're doing, like, can we talk about maybe property over by the airport that would be a good parking lot? We could take a shuttle and pick up, and you could also use it for snowmobiles, right? So some of that fits in, and I think we want our managers to start getting out in the town a little more and be a part of some of your committees, and, you know, just to kind of keep in tune. Not that we want to direct any of it. We'll come up with some of these ideas and ask to partner with it. But I think that it dovetails a lot. And I think that we need to really get together on it. And it's a good time to do it now.
Can I segue for a minute? So obviously, I know cell service, and obviously you hit we've already discussed some of the stuff about the airport or sewer department use of additional parking for recreational activities, mostly snowmobiling, which I think could really help with that orchestration of skier access or skier parking to have that shuttle service come up. My segue is not understanding obviously Saddleback's plan for off season, but I'm thinking obviously for me, shuttle service, and I look at the rec department, the ability that, you know, we don't necessarily need our own shuttle, but if we can team up potentially, if there's a partnership there that allows us, the rec programs and Saddleback to team up and then have the ability to then expand or, you know, laterally together. Obviously, we sponsor events together, whether it's baseball game access or something like that, that has the ability to then transport folks as a group if they feel the need
Absolutely.
to. So it's another avenue for all of us to come together as a
Right.
community.
Right.
And go.
So we tried that this year, and on our end, the person that was responsible for connecting community, and it was with the rec group actually, decided not to stay. So that's another thing, right? The influx of, you have to, if you have people traveling here, we need housing so they'll move here, right? Because in those management roles, it's tough to stay long-term if you can't afford to, you know, live here. So, so that we did have a person that was supposed to be reaching out and doing that and building that community bridge so that we could use we have low profile shuttles for that purpose for outdoor programs. We have an outdoor program, programmer that just came in to try to do that again. And he's only been there for about a week, so I'm not gonna try to, I have a whole list for everybody.
I mean, I think the good thing is, right, that you're not closing tomorrow, right? Saturday, right? So it's like, this is a long-term growth thing, you know, you're working out kinks, and if we all work together, we can be as integrated.
Right.
Definitely long term, you know, any hopes at all, but I think right now this conversation takes place at a crucial time for the fact that we start to plan our budget for the year. So as we, in this process, it allows me to then coordinate as time allows the next few months to then look at how we have to financially
Yeah.
work together. So it was like the cell service and how we partner with that, and obviously the rec program, not just rec, but other abilities.
So Janine's asked a couple of times about the 501c. Right. And the chambers, typically how that goes. Does anybody have any suggestions for Janine? Would it be the chamber? Would it be another? But the thing about the chamber building is the actual facility itself doesn't have very much space. So I don't think that physically they could carve out any kind of a area. Now, I don't know that for sure, like if both offices are being utilized as we speak or not, and that would be a chamber. I would definitely think you should be talking to the chamber just to introduce yourself and then talk about it, but would anybody in this group have any recommendations of any other organizations that it would be a good fit?
I would think about the Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust, David Miller and Amanda, the Liberty over there. They're expanding actually, and right across the street, they're building an office building right next to the Rangeley Inn that's gonna be leasing space.
No,
No, they're not. The
No, they're
Heritage
not.
Trust isn't building that.
No, but their business person is building space across the street. And I know that the scenic byways and some other offices are going in there, so there could be the potential to find out. You're right at that focal point coming into town. We know we're gonna be making major improvements to Depot Street parking. And so you have Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust across the street. You have the new office building going up on the other side of the street, so there might be a fit there.
I don't know, but I think there might be a fit, building wise, but mission wise, it really fits with the chamber. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
problem with any of the other 501(c)s if they're, I mean, I'm on the board of Rangeley Health and Wellness, and it's
Yeah.
constantly, we're looking at, you look at your mission, we only have a certain amount of dollars we can bring in. Does
Right.
it make sense to expand your mission to something?
Mhm.
And the chamber mission falls directly there.
Yes, it does.
Right. So definitely, I would.
Yeah, that's helpful.
um,
Helpful, and I'll find out, so do we know who has that office space now?
The
Across-
chamber?
find out,
No,
Across
across-
whose building?
Yeah, and it's, I'm spacing on her name, Stephanie Berea's.
So, and David, I know has had multiple conversations, actually Laura and David. And I have talked with Andy about some things early on, so you could talk to David. David's the executive director of the Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust. Although,
Yes,
about potentially renting, it would be a separate thing.
yeah.
The one thing I know that trust kind of doesn't like, I mean, they like the ability, they're right, the whole reason why they're in town is to come, but they are not the Chamber of Commerce. And
Yeah.
people think they are, so if they start, everybody's directing
Bridging
in,
over, yeah,
then they're answering, yeah, go to the,
right.
you can go to Aquasic and eat here, and they don't wanna do that, they don't have the time to do that, they,
Right.
they want.
Yeah.
So that would.
Yeah,
be-
well, no, that was very helpful, very helpful. And the job board itself, being there at the front of when you come into town would be a great.
Yeah, the job, so when we first started this committee, that was one of the very first things we talked about, was having a job board and having an apartment board, right? Because each and every one of us, when we were hiring, we're like trying to figure out, well, where are we gonna put this person? And then, again, if you know the right person who has the apartment, then you're lucky. But if you don't, you have no idea where to find, So I think all of these things are needed and challenges and just coordinating them, great.
Good.
All right,
Okay.
thank you very much, Janine. Any more questions for her before, we're over about 15 minutes already. So I'm gonna wrap this up, if that's okay. The only thing on the broadband update I do wanna say is the grant that is in place right now that Connect Maine Authority applied for, which is at NTIA, will be decided in November. So Maine and other locations have applied for this grant. And the amount of people, we've gotten word that the amount of applicants for this grant is in the tune of $2.5 billion. The amount of the grant itself is 288 million. So basically 10% of the applicants will be selected, or 10% of the revenue requirement of those applicants. So the odds now have diminished that Maine would be selected. Doesn't mean they won't be, doesn't mean we might have I heard we have a great application and we have a lot of shovel-ready projects. Rangeley is one of those areas there's like three or four different areas within Maine that was in this grant. It was the whole Rangeley region, all of the plantations that we discussed. It was Lincoln, it was a bunch of others in there. So it is very important that the community has the quarterly meeting and that we start Plan B strategy, that if we do not get the grant, that we need to move forward with the interlocal agreement and get some of those conversations happening now, not in November. And if you want anybody from this committee to be attending that, I know Laura and I have been on the broadband delegate percentage, I would be happy to attend, but I don't know if the quarterly meeting's all about broadband.
It will be the focus for sure. There are a couple of other things I'd like to kind of bring up. One of them is the dry hydrants for the fire departments, may be able to help the other communities with that. The other one, which I'm not sure if this is the right meeting for it or not, is something actually that Selectman Moller brought up, which is police coverage in the communities. So I don't know if it's the right time for that. Those are two other things that are on my mind.
Yeah.
But the star of the show is broadband. I think we need to get through that before any other discussion.
And the only conversation really to have about that is moving forward with Plan B, which is the interlocal agreement, correct?
Right,
Okay,
yes.
yeah, it's gonna be tricky. So Keith, thank you so much. The signs are coming up. I know we're looking good there. We're looking good on the banners, but we need to switch them out, and I don't know if anything's happened with fall banners, or we're gonna.
Real quick, they have not, if they installed, I did hand out to, to local, like I could reach real quick, I reached, handed out when I could reach the release ones.
Yeah.
You know, like, left a bunch at the Inner Eye, met up with Nick Rangeley, Kyle Haley, those guys, got one back so far. I have not released anything, requesting anything yet, because I haven't thought of anything, I just ran out of time, which is awful. And then just didn't have the idea of the survey monkey, like,
Right.
to have this submittal process, because obviously right now we have nothing to survey out.
Who turned in release?
Well, what I have right now is Nick Rangeley. And he didn't obviously give me a specific piece, he just said,
Yeah, sure.
you can use my work.
Does he have a website or a way that these folks could kind of look at what he has?
Oh, I'm sure, I see, he came up with
He has a storefront.
storefront.
Yeah.
Roger Page's old shop, he's down there, obviously, he has has an art down there currently, and I know he's looking to go back, just, I guess, for your reference, he's looking to go back to the Roger Page that was at one time. To have that same kind of needle service look down there ultimately, so I could play a good role in Southback's relationship with community, or the community's relationship with Southback, especially.
What would make the process easier for you folks? Would it-
It's not me, it's you. I mean, right, it's to get to the town, the selections, and then pick them. I mean, right now, and then we have to order them, so that's all town of Rangeley responsibility. I mean, all we are doing is saying, yeah, we like that.
That was my question.
Yeah.
What will make it easier for you to decide which ones you would like?
Just show them to us, but I don't think we have it.
We don't have
There you
it,
go. So what I'll do.
but so it's all on Keith is the problem, right? And
Well,
Keith
yeah.
is busy, so we need to,
What I'll do, I get a quick Facebook post out though. I mean, really, search all these Facebook. obviously.
That's what I'm
Right
thinking.
now it's community driven, obviously our initial thought is community driven, so I'll get a quick Facebook post out requesting.
fall,
that
winter,
fall,
spring.
winter, imagery, whether it's photographs, artistic presentation of something, looking for, our goal of the banner. So,
So what I envision is us doing that, just to be clear, that is our work to do. I would like this committee to look at what we compile and direct us which ones you like. And if we're going to use a survey process, I don't want to put 300 on the survey process. I want to take, your top 10 or 15 picks, and then have the public chime in.
Yeah,
So I just kind of wanted to outline the process. So at some point, I would like you very much, this committee to tell us which ones you want to move forward. in
yes,
terms of
that's,
going to the
we'll do
survey.
whatever.
so I'll get a Facebook post out today or tomorrow.
And then we'll probably.
The other thing I think we need to look at is lighting for the winter months,
I
because we're gonna lose some lighting.
I did have a phone call on that. Right now I'm playing phone tag. Just last week's been busy, but I'll get that done today too.
Okay.
I know there's some hardware brackets we can have, so.
And Keith, on the parking, I did mention to the committee earlier about the Chick Hill potentially using doing some permitted parking there.
Absolutely.
And maybe some other locations like even down at the end of the road and
Right.
certain areas.
Correct.
And that's moving forward, you're still
I'm
in
still
that
okay with
process,
that.
yeah.
And it's, what we have in place right now, I'll say Chick Hill for the current state. I pile a little bit extra. I pile a little bit extra in the area where I have my lay down yards. It's already maintained, it's already done anyway, so it's just, more frequent. Rest of the parking lots are already open up every storm anyway. So that parking isn't formal. A Chick Hill anyway, it's not formal spots, but it allows those snowmobile trailers to kind of just have the ability to get out of town a little bit and have trail access right there. And
We haven't implemented that.
no, we haven't implemented it,
Just
it's
to
an
be
easy
clear.
process to initiate.
And so your plan is to talk to the snowmobile club?
So what I would do is obviously, one, Joe and I would obviously go to select board first to verify that they, are in favor of that. I'll say Chick Hill properties particularly, and then I would definitely, recommendation to that would be a very stern conversation with the snowmobile club that, we want, there's boundaries there for a reason, so we'll obviously invite the people to come up there and park, but I mean, I'm saying, there is surveillance up there, but we also have property that we don't want people on.
Right.
So having those strict rules.
I'm just thinking that we should coordinate all, the community doesn't know if it's a town permitted park, right, snowmobile club property. Just to make sure that we're all coordinated with what's available. And so people aren't either blaming the snowmobile club for not letting them park it or you, or, just to be all on the same page, open and.
Agreed, absolutely.
Yeah.
So traveling up Chick Hill, where are you talking, like at the top?
It's closer to the office, we'd have,
So then you have to worry about people breaking in the office.
well, so the downfall to the office, right, I say downfall, we lock everything in the office, there's nothing that can happen. We have surveillance cameras around the office.
Yeah.
This one plus. At one time, Chick Hill office was a safety zone where people could actually come in and call if they had to. So Frenchie had set up so that we were actually whatever the actual proper term is, a safe haven almost or something like that. But,
For like abused women and stuff like that. Is
well,
that
that's
what you're talking about?
but that's the wrong way, but the rescue zone, the facility coming to warm up and, not necessarily use anything,
Okay.
to have the access to the phone and emergency services, and heat and everything. Hasn't happened since I've been there, obviously. I've never had anybody, because obviously right now, some of the trail is right there anyway. The office, people come up to the weather station right across from the office. They're always up down the dooryard, they're always out by the snowfields. They're not supposed to be, but nobody's ever really done any damage or broke into the office. Nothing that can't happen. But my thought would be obviously not necessarily office area parking, but we have outskirts of where I put material right now, they could actually, we can just plow out a little bit more space.
So maybe that one shouldn't be first come, first served, maybe that one should be, okay, they contacted you, you got all their contact
Right.
information.
Permit.
No, I think long term, you have a little more ability up there. Long term, it's more ability to get people off, to get those trailers off Main Street, out of Depot Street, so you have more of that local use.
Right.
And
Yeah, I don't know if this is even anything to get off the ground this year.
it may not be, I think it's a cheap, fairly achievable, low hanging ability. It doesn't.
Well, the Chick Hill thing isn't gonna require, like you said, it's not requiring a lot of effort physically, right?
No, I mean,
So it's just getting a permitted process and sending it out to make, maybe keeping it
that's my opinion.
small at first and then,
That'd be my opinion, obviously maybe there's more I'm not looking at, so we'll have to discuss it with everybody, but.
There's no extra plowing or anything like that. That's gonna be done.
I mean, it would be a little bit, but I think it's really just one more round with the plow truck, would just be one more push out. Because they get parking the outskirts of the road, and the road is already opened up at 40 feet, I'll say 40 feet, but 30 feet anyway. This is way to look at it. We can definitely discuss that. Something not a promise by any means, but I think we can, I think it's cheap. With little, work.
I didn't realize how many geese hang out at the airport.
They're going slowly.
How many?
Like,
what?
they look like they're in the rocks,
Yeah.
coming all the way down the hill. They're on the runway. I'm like, whoa.
They're at the cemetery now.
They're disappearing slowly.
cemetery of geese.
Yeah.
The less people don't, the better they are.
They're all over the place in the cemetery.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
yeah, there is.
alive. I was like
Oh, yeah, they're.
thinking they were.
I was wondering what your reaction.
Yes.
What really weird reaction.
I thought you meant the airport was like dead geese or something. All right. Monday morning.
Cemetery.
I think we'll wrap this up and, unless there's any more questions, Keith, do you have any more things you wanna?
Sorry, I'm late.
No, thank you very much. So the 27th is when the quarterly meeting is, which would be 2 weeks from today, so it might not be a bad idea just for us to meet again on the 27th. And then maybe after that one, we'll go out again to like 3 3 or 4 weeks. Does that work for everybody? Yeah, because then the next 2 weeks are the Oktoberfest and Columbus Day weekend. So we could go out to towards the end of October after that, so the 27th of September. And Keith, whatever you have, just send us and then we can all,
I'll get that released right
Yeah.
ASAP, and then we'll get by the next meeting and at least give us a starting point.
and I thank you again, Janine, for joining us.
Thank
This is a public meeting where we're just a group that's trying to work with the town to make sure that the downtown plan and some of the things that are in the comp plan get moved forward and focused on, and it requires a community to get these things done. The wayfinding signs, for instance, is an example, which was a job done by multiple organizations and multiple grants under multiple things to get that piece of work done. And working as one group, it would have taken us forever. It would have cost us a fortune. So because we work together, we could network and group together and we could all benefit. So
That's great.
um,
Well,
Sounds
thank
good.
you again for allowing me to come and say my piece.
No, yeah.
And I'll probably just, if it is a open meeting,
Yeah.
somebody will
Showing,
rotate
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make a motion to close the meeting at 10:30.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, guys. Thanks for everything. And I think the signs are great. So if anybody says anything bad